Ready, set. Okay. Section 7. We're still in Article 1. If you missed yesterday, you'll have to watch the video and catch up. While you can't see everything that happens on the board, you still should be able to listen and get what you need to know. Okay? Section 7. Passing laws. Excuse me. Tax laws must originate in the House. Why would you want tax laws to originate in the House of Representatives? Exactly. We talked about it yesterday. Representatives only serve 2-year terms, which means they have to be close to the people. If you're going to pass a new tax, right, you really want to make sure that people approve it. So that means we want it to originate in the House, because if people don't approve it, the representatives should be the one that know whether or not it's going to pass or not. For a bill to become a law, the process of a bill becoming a law, it has to start in either house. Okay, if it's a tax bill, obviously we just said it has to start in the House. But bills can start inside the Senate as well. But for a bill to become a law, it must start in Congress, get approved by both houses, and then it goes to the President. And if the President signs it, it becomes law. Okay? If he doesn't sign it, he will veto it. And when he vetoes it, that's a check and balance we've already talked about, right? Okay? He's checking the legislative branch, or she's checking the legislative branch. Vetoes that bill, it goes back to Congress. Now, another check that Congress can have on the President is they can override that veto. And they can override that with the 2/3 vote. So they got the simple majority. They got 50% to get it to pass, the bill to go to the President. Now if they can get 2/3, if they can get 67% in both houses, they can override that veto and get past the President. So they say, hey, you know what, the people want this, we got to have this. Even though the President vetoed it, we get 67%, boom, it becomes the law automatically. Okay? Section 8. Now, this is the biggest section. These are the powers granted to Congress. There's going to be a lot of words up here. Don't flip out. Are you ready? Prepare yourself. Take a deep breath.
Wait, can we go really slow?
Real slow. So like this.
Well, no, I think so.
Okay. So on these, revenue. Revenue. Congress is in charge of revenue. They're in charge of borrowing, commerce, currency. So we can kind of start grouping these together. Right? That's what I want you to see. I'm going to put them all up here. Revenue, borrowing, commerce, currency, counterfeiting. All that has to do with what? Money. Okay, so now if I want to try to simplify this a little bit, powers granted to Congress, they're in charge of money. What else? Can we group any others?
National Guard, Army.
National Guard, militia, armed forces, Army, Navy, declare war, piracy. All those have to do with what?
The military.
Okay, so we can say armed forces. Now, there's something unique about this, though, with the legislative branch. What's the legislative branch's responsibility in the armed forces? Huh? The executive branch. What role does the executive branch play in the military? Commander-in-Chief. Okay? So while Congress is in charge of the armed forces for the nation, the President is the highest military official no matter what. So if he says send troops, troops go. They do not have to go through Congress, but Congress declares war or not.
So Congress can deny the president if he says the truth.
No. If the President says send troops, troops go.
What about to start the war?
To start a war, it has to go through Congress. And typically the President goes to Congress and says, I recommend that we declare a state of war against whoever. Okay? It's important to remember that difference. What else? You want to group any other ones? Do you see anything with any other branches? Courts. What about courts? What do you notice about that one? That's typically the judicial branch, right? So why are we talking about it with Congress? Congress can pass laws for the courts. Okay? They're in charge of that court system. Supreme Court ultimately has the ultimate say, but Congress is in charge of the lower federal courts. Okay? And then the biggest one is this one. The elastic clause. Why is the elastic clause the biggest power that Congress has? Also called the necessary and proper clause. Why is it vague? Things change. You need to write that down. Things change. We cannot, if we had to list out every single power, every single thing that Congress could do, what would our Constitution look like? It would be huge, right? If we put this one statement in there, which the founders did, they now have the ability to change their powers over the course of time as time, technology, society, culture, all those things change. Your view of opinion, imagine when the Constitution came out, slavery was a thing. We still have slavery today? No, and partially due to the fact that Congress has this ability to change with it. We added an amendment. Okay? But things like the Pure Food and Drug Act is probably the best example. Okay? Congress doesn't have the power listed out in the Constitution that they can affect what goes into your food or your drugs. Right? But you as a consumer, Congress felt like you should be informed about what goes into your food, what process your food goes through, and your drugs too. You should know what the side effects are when you take this drug. Okay? You should know that, hey, you can potentially become addicted to this drug. Right? Because people were going around and selling opium and say, hey, you know what, you just put a little look at this and your headache will go away. Well, yeah, your headache will go away. You'll feel numb. And people got extremely addicted to it. Have you ever seen like Tombstone? It's a good movie. Okay? What's the two guys' names? Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. Wyatt Earp's wife. Is it Wyatt Earp's wife or is it Doc Holliday's wife? It's Wyatt Earp's. Which is the one that's sick? Doc's sick. So it's Wyatt Earp's. Wyatt Earp's wife is addicted to opium. She carries the bottle with her all the time. Okay? If you ever get a chance to watch that movie, watch that movie. It's a good Western. Okay? It's got Sam Elliott in it. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. He's got the coolest voice ever. Alright? So, necessary and proper clause, elastic clause is in there because things change. Congress's powers, Congress's abilities need to be able to change as well. Okay? Alright. Section 9. Powers denied to the federal government. So in Section 8, we just listed out all the things that Congress can do. Now in Section 9, we're going to list out all the things that the federal government cannot do. Congress is not allowed to do. Slave trade. Why is it blue? So this means that Congress cannot control the slave trade. If it's in the Constitution, powers denied to the federal government, this is saying, the Constitution is saying, Congress cannot touch the slave trade. But up here, it's written in blue. Why do you think it's written in blue? Just take a guess. Very good. Does Congress control the slave trade today? Do we have a slave trade today? Which means what? It's gone. So this has been taken out of the Constitution with an amendment. If anything's written in blue or has a line through it, that means it is no longer in the Constitution. Okay? So Congress initially was not allowed to touch the slave trade. Habeas corpus. Habeas corpus. The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless in case of rebellion or invasion of public safety may require it. So now the question is, what is habeas corpus? So gross. Sounds gross? Okay. What language is it in? Latin. It translates as, you shall have the body. That's what it translates as. You shall have the body. Now, knowing that, what do you think it means? War? Why war? Why death?
You die more.
You die more. So Congress is not allowed to die more than any other branch.
If like someone dies in war, like taken.
Dies in war? No. What it says, a writ of habeas corpus is a court order that requires the government to bring a prisoner to court and explain why he or she is being held. So, your habeas corpus must be present. What this is saying is you cannot deny somebody a writ of habeas corpus. You have to tell them why they're being held prisoner. You can't just arrest somebody for no reason. You must tell them why they're being arrested. Okay? Now don't get that confused. In denied to the federal government, that doesn't mean that we don't have to tell them. That means that you cannot deny somebody this right of habeas corpus. If they ask, they shouldn't have to ask. It should automatically be told to them. Which we make in a court order. Does anybody know the court case where you say, hey, you have to tell people why they're being held and a bunch of other stuff? Miranda rights, right? You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. You have the right to attorney. If you cannot afford one will be provided for you.
I don't even know that was
Thank you, Channing Tatum. Jonah Hill, whatever. Channing's way sexier.
Oh! That just got recorded too.
It's just a joke. Bills of Attainder. Bills of Attainder. Jiminy Christmas. Trying to be funny. Bill of Attainder. A law. A law declaring that a person is guilty of a particular crime. Catch that? A law declaring a person is guilty of a particular crime. Oh, there's a better. Whoops. The other thing that goes with bills of attainder is ex post facto. Okay, hold on. I'm going to explain it all, and I'll say it multiple times. Ex post facto. EX space post, like a hedge post. Facto. Fact with an O on it. Again, Latin. Bill of attainder, what you're saying with this is you cannot determine that somebody is guilty without a court trial. Okay? We can't just arrest you and say you're guilty. We have to go through the process, which we'll get to in Amendment number 5. You cannot declare a person guilty of a crime without a court trial. An ex post facto law, which is the second part of Bill of Attainder, ex post facto, means that you cannot create a law and then try to arrest somebody after they've already done it. So, I did this act. Okay? They created a law, and now they're going to try to go back and find me guilty for doing that before it was actually a law. Okay? So, a silly way to do this is it's illegal to steal red cars. Okay? They make a law. It's illegal to steal red cars. I steal a blue car. Is it illegal? No. The next week they pass a law that says all cars cannot be stolen. It's illegal to steal all cars. and they go back and they say, hey, you know what? You stole a blue car. Well, when I stole the blue car, it was legal. Okay? I was borrowing it. Does that make sense? So you know what an ex post facto law is? You cannot create a law and then try to make somebody guilty of that law before it was even a law. Okay? So if they committed the act before it was law, you cannot try to find them guilty of it. Yes. So bill of attainder, you cannot find somebody guilty without a court trial. Ex post facto, you can't create a law and then try to find somebody guilty of it before it was actually a law. Okay? Next one, direct taxes. Direct tax. What's a direct tax? Taxes directly out of your paycheck. That was denied to the federal government. What's an indirect tax? Yes, like a sales tax. A sales tax is an indirect tax. A property tax is an indirect tax. Okay? Direct taxes are illegal according to the Constitution. Now, do they take money out of your paycheck? Yes. So what happened then? We added an amendment that says there is an exception to the direct tax rule. That exception is the income tax. Okay, so the 16th Amendment changes this a little bit. You need to know that. So while they deny this direct tax to the people, this is illegal according to the Constitution, but we're going to add the 16th Amendment, which says income taxes are going to be legal. A tax on exports. Tax on exports. Congress cannot tax you for shipping something to Europe. Uniformity of treatment. What's that mean? Everybody's treated the same. Now, what are we talking about? People here, or what are we talking? We're talking about states. So I cannot treat a citizen of the state of Arizona any differently than I do to treat a citizen of the state of Missouri. Uniformity of treatment. Doesn't matter what state I'm from, everybody gets the same deal. Appropriation law. Anybody know what appropriation means? Nope. Okay. President cannot spend money without whose approval? Congress. So appropriation law. No money shall be drawn from the treasury but in consequence of appropriations made by the law, and a regular statement and account of the receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be published from time to time. So, not only does the president have to ask to spend money from Congress, but all that information has to be made what? Public. Public. If it's a government-run section or a government-run whatever, it has to be public. Everybody has to know about it. So like my salary. Who pays my salary? You do. With taxes. The government does. So my salary, you can get on Google right now and you can look it up. Every teacher in the state of Missouri, you can look up their salary, how much they make. MoDOT, USDA. If it's a government-run agency, you can look up the salary of that job for that person for that year. Okay? What'd you do, break it? Decrease in dent?
Wait, would this be like, if it's just like, with the government money that he's spending, or like out of his salary money?
His salary money is his salary money. Like, the government can't tell me what to do with my money. Right? And same thing with the president. If it's his money, then yes. I mean, if he goes and buys a suit, he doesn't have to have Congress's approval to buy a suit. Okay? He's got to have his stylist. No. We're saying, like, if he's going to use government funds to pay for something, it needs to go through Congress.
Alright, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay? Titles of nobility. Titles of nobility. Nobody in the United States will have a title of nobility. Which means what? There's no Archduke of Cooper County. Right? As much as you might think that you're the queen or king of a certain place, you're not. The United States recognizes no titles of nobility inside the United States. Now, what happens if the King of England comes to the United States? He no longer the King of England? No. He's still the King of England, but no American citizen will have a title of nobility from the United States. Now, you might be able to you might go to, I don't know, teach at Oxford or something in England, and you do something absolutely awesome, and they knight you. Sure, you can be a knight there, but you're not going to be a knight from the United States. Okay? Maybe. Any questions about Section 9? Uniformity of treatment. Everybody has to be treated the same. So it doesn't matter what state I'm from, I get the same treatment from the federal government. You know, like if they're going to tax me, the sales tax, well, that's not a good example. Water thing. Like what's going on in Michigan right now?
All that like metal in your
lead
and making the kids crazy.
Making the kids crazy.
That's what I thought. Maybe that's making kids so bad.
It's because that's not run by the federal government. That's run by state government, so that's totally different.
Snyder.
Okay? Huh?
Snyder.
Snyder? I forget. You're from Michigan, aren't you? Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. I wondered how you knew all that stuff about it. Okay. Good? Section 10. This is the last section of Article 1. Last section of Article 1. Power is denied to the states. Limitations on power. States cannot tax import and export taxes. What happens if we have Texas has their import tax and California has a different import tax? It's totally different, right? So we want that all to be the same. It goes back to a last one, uniformity of treatment. So our exports taxes and our import taxes have to be the same, which we don't have export taxes in the first place. So all imports must be the same across all the states. And states cannot charge their own. States also cannot have their own armed forces, okay, or declare war. You know, if Montana went to war with Canada, that would be a problem, right? Texas go to war with Mexico, that would be an issue. We can't do that. It's either the United States is going to war with Mexico or nobody. So individual states cannot have their own armed forces. They cannot declare war. That first one, that limitations on power, that means like Kansas can't make their own coins, okay, or create a treaty. You know, you don't want Florida having a treaty with Cuba and the United States doesn't talk to Cuba, which we do now, but before. Yes. Last year was, yep. All from the Cold War. Russia put in the Soviet Union at the time put in nuclear missiles, long-range missiles in Cuba when JFK was president. It was a bad deal. We almost went to nuclear war. So we haven't talked to Cuba since last year. We don't like you. Huh? The 60s?
55 years.
All right. Ready for Article 2?
No.
Yeah, you are.
No.
Yeah, you are. Article 2. Now, something that you're going to notice. Well, I'll just see if you notice it. Article 2, the executive branch. The executive branch is the president and the vice president, and then all of the cabinet. So everything below the president and the vice president. Their job is to enforce the laws. Congress did what with the laws? Made them. Legislative branch makes the laws. Executive branch enforces those laws. So Section 1, we're going to do the terms of office for the president. President is going to serve 4-year terms. We add, in the Constitution it wasn't limited, but typically presidents had only served for 2 terms. Why did they do that? Because that's what George Washington did. George Washington felt that a president serving more than 2 terms had too much power. So he resigned. He kind of set a precedent. And every president up to FDR did the exact same thing. They only served 2 terms. Nobody even thought about trying to go for a 3rd. FDR did, though. He got elected to a 3rd and to a 4th. Why? Why did he want to do that? Why did he break that tradition? Because we're right in the middle of the Great Depression and World War II. And he was a leader through both of those things, and he wanted to continue to be a leader through those things. And the American people wanted him. They loved him. So he continued to do that. Now, after he passes, gets elected to 4 terms, the 22nd Amendment comes out shortly thereafter that says what? Only serve 2 terms. So that tradition, that custom that we had, George Washington kind of set the bar, then FDR broke. After FDR gets done, we say, hey, you know what? Instead of that being a tradition, it needs to just be a law. So we add the 22nd Amendment. Now a president can only serve 2 terms. The election process for the president. We've talked about this multiple times. It has to all go through the Electoral College. The Electoral College's sole job is to determine who wins presidential elections. How do I know the number of electoral votes that each state gets? House of Representatives plus senators for that state. So to win the presidency, what must I win? States and electoral votes, not popular votes. It is possible to win more popular vote and still lose the presidency. Okay? You must win electoral votes. It used to be that if you got the majority of these votes, you became the president. And if you were in second place, you became the vice president. Why does that not work, and why is it blue? What changed it? The 26th Amendment?
No.
The 12th. The 12th Amendment. One of those, yeah. The 12th Amendment changes it and says the president and the vice president are going to be on the same ticket. Why would you not want the guy in second place to be the vice president? Imagine our presidency right now, like the presidential election that's going on. Trump wins the election, Hillary gets second place. Now they have to work together. Can you imagine that? That would be hilarious. Not good for our country, but it would be hilarious. Or even the other way around. If Hillary wins and Trump is her vice president. That would be... I don't know. I mean, I've never had faith in him. That's what I predicted. And no, I don't think so. I think that whoever is the Democratic person will win. Whether it's Hillary or... I don't want it to be, but either one. Because the Republican Party is so screwed up right now. They can't make up their mind. Can they just say no? Well, that's what we're talking about. If Trump wins the more delegates, they're talking about just saying no, he's not going to win it and get somebody else.
Oh, thank God.
So, like, in what gets like the U.S.
No. Like the Republican Party. So before it actually goes to the U.S. voters, the Republican Party, if Trump... What they're doing right now is the primaries. And if they win so many delegates, it's typically, okay, so you win more of the delegates than anybody else, then you're probably going to be the Republican nominee. But it still has to go to that convention, nominating convention. And the Republican Party has threatened that if Trump wins more delegates, they still won't elect him as the presidential nominee. They'll get somebody else. I don't know. That's how screwed up the Republican Party is right now.
Like, if you know you're going to say no.
Why can't you just like get their little
I don't know. It's one of the most interesting presidential elections probably ever. This year.
This year.
Okay, president must be 35 years old, and he must be a U.S. citizen for 14 years. He also, it's not written down in here, should be, but it's not. He also, or she, must be a natural born citizen. So how are they a U.S. citizen for 14 years then?
If they move to another country.
So they're born here, they moved in here.
Born here, so let's say my presidents are both university professors and we move to Italy and live in Italy for yada yada years. Okay? Then come back. I must be a U.S. citizen and live in the United States for 14 years before I can become president.
Doesn't like count like another country? Like doesn't that like?
Who has multiple houses? And probably in other countries, yeah.
If these citizens are in another country.
No. No, you can only be a citizen of one country.
Let's do citizenship.
If you're a dual citizen, that means in the United States, the only way to be a dual citizen is you have to be in the military. And so my military parents, let's say they're on a base in Okinawa, Japan, and they have me. I'm a citizen of Japan and the United States because it's technically U.S. soil, but it's Japan soil at the same time. So now I'm two citizens of two countries.
So it wouldn't work if like you were one of your parents was like an immigrant and another one was a U.S. citizen and born in America, but
Yeah, you're not a citizen of that immigrant parent's country. Yeah. Okay? Establishes the order of replacement, which says, hey, if the president can't do his job, who's next? If that person can't do the job, who's next? Who's next? Who's next? Who's next? Okay? Salary. Who sets the salary? Congress does. Anybody know the presidential salary right now? $400,000 per year. And they get a $100,000 expenditure account. And the oath of office is listed in the Constitution, which they read off at their inaugural address. Butcher that? I don't know how you can mess it up. It's kind of like saying your marriage vows. You just repeat it after the...
I think people go off and make noise and you can hear those things that... I think Obama messed it up. Like we did it.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I know that. Nope. Article 2. Section 2. Section 2. Powers of the President. The President is the Commander-in-Chief of the military. It says in Section 2, the President shall be Commander-in-Chief of the Army, Navy of the United States, and of the militia of several states. When called into actual service of the United States, he may require the opinion in writing of a principal officer, yada, yada, yada. What you need to know is he's the Commander-in-Chief. Now, that means he's the highest military person in the United States. Does he have to have military experience to be the President? No. So that's what's really unique. This person can be just a citizen. They don't have to be in the military, but yet they are the highest military person in the whole country. Okay? Very, very, very unique. That does not happen very much.
how would we make it like that?
Why would we make it like that?
Because it was like Washington was like military or...
No, we made it like that because that tells you that the military is not going to have some general come up and, you don't have to be required to be a general or in the Army or in the Navy to actually be this presidential person. We don't typically want somebody who is so into the military that they become leader of the nation. Does that mean a general can't do a bad job? No. I mean, Eisenhower, Washington, there's been lots of generals that have been president, but you don't have to be. Okay? Treaties and appointments. The president is in charge of those. He can make treaties. He appoints ambassadors. So, if we need an ambassador to the state the state of Saudi Arabia, the president is the person that says, that's the person I want to do that job. If there's a vacancy in office, so like the most famous one right now is what? What vacancy do we have in our government right now? A Supreme Court Justice. How long do Supreme Court Justices serve? life. Okay? We have a vacancy. This says, according to the Constitution, who has the job to fill that vacancy? President. So Barack Obama will pick the person that will take that spot, and they will have that spot for life. Now, all presidential appointments must be approved by who? Checks and balances here. Congress. Specifically, what part of Congress? The Senate. The Senate must approve all presidential appointments.
What if they decide like 20 years and they're going to want to do it?
They can resign and be done.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do they do that very often?
Resign? Yes. Yeah, they can get really old. Alright, we'll do section 3 and be done. Duties of the President. I said duties. Duties of the President. The President has to have a State of the Union address every single year. Now, we said something about Congress. Congress has to meet what? Once a year. Why? Set a budget. The President must also talk to Congress once a year. Typically, it's at that one, whenever the Constitution just came out, it was at that one meeting where the President outlines his plan for the entire year. This is the things that I want to accomplish. Here's my maybe proposed budget. I don't. It's not approved by Congress, but here's what I would like to spend money on this year. Those kind of things. The President also can ask foreign diplomats to leave. So, hey, you got the Japanese ambassador in 1941 on December 8th. What would FDR probably tell him to do? Get out. Right? Leave. Why? What happened on December 7th, 1941? Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor. Okay? Section 4. No.
You
I said finish this slide. Finish the slides, what I meant. Impeachment. What is impeachment? Not getting rid of the president. It means to bring charges against a high-ranking official. Write it down again. Impeachment means to bring charges against a high-ranking official. In Section 4, we list out the reasons. These are the reasons that the president can be impeached. Treason, bribery, other high crimes. Bringing charges against a high-ranking official. Who decides if the president is guilty or innocent? Which part of Congress? The Senate. So if we impeach a president, that process starts in the House of Representatives. They say, hey, we vote to impeach the president. The Senate then looks at that case and says guilty or not. If they're guilty, they're thrown out of office. If they're innocent, they get to stay. Okay? All right.
Yeah.
Day 2. Complete.